Hey everybody, welcome to Soul Streams.
Hello, welcome on in.
We are excited to talk about cancer season.
Yes,
Between the
I'm
two of
super
us,
excited.
how many cancer placements do we have?
Oh, I know, right? I want to say, you know, if we count, if I can count Chiron in that mix too, right?
Yeah.
One, two, three,
Yeah.
four, four.
And I have four. So that's
Yeah.
eight. Yeah.
See, we we got that cancer energy down packed, I promise.
Yeah. And I think it might be fun before we even jump into the specific dates. Of course, cancer season this year will begin June 20th. But you have so many great insights on cancer just as an archetype. I think it would be fun for a few minutes just to talk about that sign and maybe our experiences personally with ourselves or with others, how it might
Yeah,
show up versus how the books or the social media portray it.
totally. I have a lot of experience with cancer, not only from the perspective that I have a lot of cancer placements, but I've had my fair share of tangos with cancer as
Yeah.
well, which makes sense in my chart that I would attract a lot of cancer energy. And so, prior to jumping on the lot or the recording, I was saying that with cancer, I love with them or with cancer energy in general. There is this strong, emotional dynamic that we always talk about with cancer. The thing is, I feel like with a lot of like mainstream pop, you know, videos that we see, we position cancer as like the crybabies or
Yeah.
the ones that like want their comfort food at home in bed. And I will tell you, in my personal experience, after dating or being friends with the plethora of cancers that I've been around, that probably was like one experience compared to everything else I've experienced with cancer. I've had so many wild experiences with cancers because I've had everything from like commitment issues to like emotional instability, chaos, manipulation, multiple personalities, all of the things
Yes.
I could you could put
Yes.
them here. And what's interesting though is that and one of the things that I remember with cancer is that if cancer has a relationship with our kind of like how we were raised or how we received love or our early emotional conditioning, it would make sense that in relationships, right? The types of people that we're meeting, if they have unhealed early emotional patterns, which with cancer has everything, that's a big part of their soul
Yeah.
journey,
And we
it
all
would
have
make
those, by the way.
sense.
We all have
Yeah,
them. Yes.
yeah, it would make so much sense that they're gonna have commitment issues, or they could be flighty, or they may be emotionally unstable, or
Yep.
maybe emotionally disconnected, or
Mommy and
whatever it may
daddy
be.
issues, all of that
Yes,
stuff. Yep.
100%. And what's funny is people don't talk about that. People don't bring that up with cancer because it's almost like one of those things where I think the stereotype is like, oh, the cancers are supposed to be these, soft, hugging, loving, cuddly people. But like, it's a crab. And if you've ever gotten pinched by a crab, it sucks. And it's like, like, they will pinch you. And if you're not careful, it's like,
And not
crabs
let
are not,
go.
no. And you have to like, if you ever picked up a crab before, it's not easy. Like, it is
No.
very difficult to pick up a crab. That's how cancer is to me. It's like trying to pick up a crab without getting pinched.
Can we call this whole episode How to Keep a Crab?
How to keep the crab
I'm
because it's
gonna write it down.
difficult. It's very hard. Um, and so with cancer, it's like you gotta appreciate the fact that it is a sensitive sign, but we have to we you gotta understand what the past is because cancer has so much to do with the past that if that past is, and we all have baggage,
Yeah.
but if that baggage or those challenges or the pain points have not been addressed or at least engaged with, you want to be aware of that because you're going to see that when you're dating or friends or whatnot. It's very visible. And I found, at least for me,
Yeah.
um, that after attracting like the 12th or 13th one, on a first date, tell me about your past, what's your family like, what's going on, and let me hear it all first so I know what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Um, it just, but then when you do meet a cancer that is aware of that, and is so aware of their emotions and so aware of what they've been through, it's incredibly loving. It's incredibly compassionate. They can be. That's there. So it's not
Yeah.
that. it doesn't exist. I think it's a matter of being able to crack that
Mhm.
the exterior of the crab. Um, and so it's unique. So I see Cancer season. I see Cancer as it's a dilemma sign for me. It's like there's it's not what you think. And there's so much more to Cancer than what I think people are told
Yes. Well, I mean,
or read.
I would totally, 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 I would absolutely agree. And I would say I'm going to raise my hand as being one of these people that at I'm turning 51 next month. I am still in therapy for my, for all my childhood mommy, daddy emotional issues. I think that that is one of the things at the heart of the Cancer archetype,
Yeah.
right? Which is linked with the moon, which rules that sign. It's the seat of consciousness when we think about the moon. And so Cancer has a lot to do with becoming a consciously well-developed personality, right? It literally is like rounding out the psyche, if you will, from the ego perspective. And so
Mhm.
pretty much I have never met anybody that got everything they needed growing up. I just don't even know that it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I've heard you say this before too, Ricky, is that when something starts to go south or something starts to go sideways, we drop kind of right back to the IC. And I mean, we drop right back to that place in ourselves, which is, wait a second, where is this connecting to that foundation that I was raised up in? And because Cancer so much wants safety and security, there are usually all kinds of strategies and patterns in place to
Yeah.
keep oneself safe. And a lot of that is unconscious. So then we get into these different relationships, right?
Yep.
And people start to poke into those little fortresses or those little things that we've done to keep ourselves safe. And Cancer doesn't like to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
It's so interesting because the very thing we want is that emotional connection, and we want to be emotionally accepted, and we want to be able to feel what we feel and express what we express, even if it is childlike in nature. But then there also is this truly, like, I feel like the shell holds it in a container that it might not be safe. Remember,
Yeah.
to the Cancer energy, the external environment oftentimes poses a threat. When we're little babies or little children, right, we really would die if someone didn't take care of us. So
Yeah.
we learn to do what we need to do to get fed, right, or to get taken care of. The thing is that most of us just aren't conscious about what those patterns were established. And now we're, 35 years old or whatever
I
into a
know.
new relationship, and we're kind of going right back to those spaces. I want to bring up, because I think it kind of fits here, that Cancer is a sign too that tends to link towards being, tribalism mentality or clannish. We might even say cult-like thinking. And I'm not trying to be overly severe here, but if we think about earlier, like much earlier in humanity, it was necessary to form, these
Yeah.
little tight groups so we would survive. There was a tendency with Cancer to continue to do that even when it's not particularly healthy. And what that can do is get in the way of autonomy, which is where we
Totally.
have that natural square between Aries and Cancer, right?
Totally.
And I know we're going to lead into this because after the sun moves into Cancer, we have this, on the 22nd of June, we have the sun, which will be right up there with Jupiter, square Saturn and Neptune. And of course, the sun and Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Aries leads us right into this thing we're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Am I just going to go back to the default? Am I going to go back to my roots that I may not even be conscious of? Most of us are not. Um, am am I going to challenge myself to think in more complex ways to actually, like my therapist actually just shared with me. She goes, I think you grew up out of sync with yourself because of the fundamentalist environment I grew up in. That was so helpful to me. Wow, I grew up out of sync with myself. What does it
Yeah.
mean to come back into being sync with ourselves? Sometimes it takes a lot of layers of peeling back. But again, when we
Totally.
feel the threat, what do crabs do? Right? They pinch, they go in their shells, they run sideways, which is why I think what you alluded to, this how it's hard to keep a crab, is so true.
Yeah.
So, so very
Totally.
true. And even if you think you have them, you may not emotionally have them.
Right.
They may be showing up and having dinner with you and going out and do whatever you do, but there may be a whole little locked center on the inside, a crab within a crab, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you're not
You
going to
have to.
get. Yeah.
I think it's unique because just in the first couple of days of Cancer season, we're starting off Cancer season strong. Like
Yeah.
that's for sure. Um, and it's unique because you have this Aries and Cancer relationship that's unfolding. And I love what you said because Aries' desire is to have that sense of independence. Like, I want to
Yes.
be me. It's the I am. But what happens is that within Cancer, the way in which you identify safety in this world, the way that you identify that sense of belonging in this world, could challenge the very part of you that feels like this is who I am. I am not this, I'm that. And the that could be very conflicting. And what we find with just an Aries and Cancer, it's like, can I have my sense of independence and freedom while also still finding a way to belong
Yeah.
to my family or to the group or to the tribe? And it's challenging because Aries can't sacrifice or compromise its own autonomy or independence, or what they receive is anger, frustration,
Yeah.
impulsiveness. That's where
Yeah.
you get the fire of Aries starting to be born. And what's happening is that we want to watch this energy of, where do I feel like I maybe don't feel fully free, or where do I feel like that sense of autonomy and independence is being suppressed or repressed. And the other thing that I would just say with this that I'm looking at is, just between the 20th and the 23rd, Mars and Virgo is hanging out in the mix here.
Hmm.
On the 20th, Mars has a quincunx to Neptune. On the 22nd, it will sextile Jupiter in Cancer. And on the 23rd, Mars will quincunx Pluto, all as we have Neptune and Saturn hanging out with the sun in that square. It's and what's why I bring up Mars is because Mars is ruling everything that's happening in Aries, right?
Saturn and Neptune. Yep. And if that's going to even carry into the new moon. I know we're not there yet, but it's going to, because it'll be in sextile with the sun and the moon then. So we're literally,
Yeah.
Mars is like, woo.
And Mars is super amplified. And the thing is like, Mars in Virgo for me is such a unique placement, because to me, I think about the word karma, and karma in Sanskrit means action. It's taking action. And if there's an action planet, it's Mars. And
Yes.
there's something to this with Mars and Virgo about the opportunity to refine and reflect on the way in which I'm making actions and choices, and if I'm creating positive karma for myself, or if I'm creating more of the same for myself.
Yes.
And there's something to this that feels like the challenge of this comes to our core sense of identity. Am I creating for myself good, positive karma? Or am I repeating the same exact, or am I operating out of that past conditioning, where this is how I've done things in the past, so I'm going to keep doing these
Yeah.
things? And I feel like what's going to manifest, as I say with Virgo, we get a crisis. And
Yes.
the crisis that could unfold is that maybe, whether you call them guides or angels or the universe or source or your spirit animals, there may be a protection here, in the sense where, if a crisis is unfolding, say thank you.
Hmm.
Because the crisis that could be unfolding is paving way for your freedom, and is paving way for you to actually connect with the higher expression of Mars and Virgo. Which, to me, the more that I think about karma, the concept of action, feels like Mars and Virgo wants us to create good, refined action for ourselves. And I think we may be teetering between past, present, and future. Like, what do I do here? I don't know what to do. And what I would say is, if you've been on the same merry-go-round and the rides look familiar and everything looks familiar, you
Yes.
have a choice to get off the carnival and go in a new direction.
Whoa. I'm envisioning like the merry-go-round horse like leaping off the merry-go-round and getting its
Like,
own like
peace
yeah.
out.
I'm so into it. Yeah. And I
So
feel
just
like
the first couple of days, I don't know why, that's what I get with Cancer. It's like, what's going on here?
it's beautiful. And I had a lot of notes down here as well, but when you were talking, I made a couple notes. And one of the things is that psychologically, helplessness and rage really go together.
Yeah.
Meaning that when we feel helpless, then rage builds and we suppress rage. And so when you were talking, I was thinking about how Cancer sometimes can have some helpless energy about it. It can feel vulnerable and helpless. And Aries, we know, is, ruled by Mars, oftentimes is very linked with rage or anger that comes up with, I have not been able to be myself. I have not been able to want what I want. I have not been able to express my desire. And so I think that further weaves into this as well. So we might all be well served. I'm already doing this by feeling into our own balance between helplessness and rage.
Yeah.
Where have I felt helpless? And I'm going to say this again, when we're little, we are,
Hmm.
right? And so those situations can be very, very difficult because there may not be room, right, for us to
100%.
discover who we really are at that time. That may not be safe, may not be allowable. But Ricky, to your point, now no matter how old we are, this energy speaks to we can come back and open it up again. Like we can
Yeah.
really look at it again. One of the notes I had was, is it okay if it's different, is it okay? Right?
Yeah.
And so one thing I'm hypersensitive to right now is anything that discourages me from thinking about something more complexly, with more complexity, thinking about something in a more whole fashion, entertaining different ideas. And I have to keep that same sensitivity with my own self,
Yeah.
right? There are parts of me that would just say, well, no, that is just not what it is. So I want to stop and question that.
Yeah.
I want to question where is that energy, which I know this is way jumping ahead, but I think Uranus coming into Gemini when we talk about that is
Totally.
actually already pulling into this story that we're living, meaning, hey, wait a second, do you actually have all the information? Have you connected all the dots? Because most of us, again, we run on autopilot. We do it for
Yeah.
safety, we do it for comfort. The other note I
I,
had with karma being action,
yeah.
Saturn has a lot, Saturn, of course, traditionally is linked with karma too, but Saturn to me has a lot to do with responding. So, what you were just talking about is if there's a crisis, a Mars in Virgo crisis, or whatever kind of crisis, we can't control the crisis. What really is being called for is how we respond to that crisis. That's what
Bingo.
shows us more of who we are and where we're at with ourselves. And we
Totally.
do have charge over that.
Totally. I love that you said that. And I just want to connect the dots for those that are familiar with the astrology or like familiar with astrology is that Mars being in Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury has a very active life this month for Cancer
Yes.
season. And on top of that, Mercury is also the ruler of the South Node, which is in Virgo as well.
Yes.
So there's something to this. And one of the questions that I asked, I did this the other day on a video that I created, was are we going to act and lead our life from love or fear? And what's happening is that there's something about Mercury and how are we communicating things? How am I handling some things? Am I going to do this in the past? Am I going to do this in some sort of way? Like I said, it's like repeat, like there's an opportunity for us to repeat a pattern here. And I feel like there's also an opportunity for you to have a breakthrough. Um,
Oh,
there's at the same token. And so it's in neither direction is inherently right or wrong. It just depends upon where you are at in your own individual
yeah.
journey. And how
Yeah.
do you feel like you can handle this right now? Because for some, the soul may not be ready for the change that is asking. So we're
Right.
going to go through
Yes.
another round of whatever
Absolutely.
that experience is. And I feel like I'm also looking at the 24th because Mercury in Cancer is going to square Chiron in Aries. And so
Mm.
there is this opportunity, I think, and or an invitation um, to be a very therapeutic
Mm.
or cathartic
Yeah.
start to Cancer season if we're willing to embrace what's uncomfortable, if we're willing to embrace what's different, like you said. I love that. Like, what's so bad about the different? What's so bad about, being different than what everything else, how everything else is done or how I used to do things? And something about Chiron and Aries, I think, has to do with owning those parts of ourselves that are
Yes.
different and unique in that
Yes.
and loving those parts of ourselves. And there's something to that. So I love that you brought that up because I could totally see this unfolding, and we can look at this at a larger level or an individual level. Because I think the other thing about Cancer is it has to do with you were saying earlier, our personality, our
Yeah.
identity, or
Yeah.
as a country, and we're having
Yes.
this sort of who are we, who am I, is the same. I feel like we've said this a lot the past couple of months, like who am I
Mhm.
becoming? And I feel like it's a continuous story that is unfolding for us. Um, and it shows up again here.
As you're saying that made me think that and I was in downtown LA. I was at the protest for a couple hours this last weekend, and I just had this very like, I mean, experiential moment of looking and feeling, in the masses of people that one of the questions here, and I'm not saying what the answer is at all, and this tags to what you were just saying, Ricky, is that sometimes we have to ask the question, do I belong here? Can I belong here? Or do I need to be or move or somewhere else or do something different? So I think that is reflective of how many of us feel in the United States right now. I think different places in the country as well. It's just that this is where I'm from. So, this is what I know most. When you were talking about the differences, I just want to say that the more we double down in the fear of differences, the more we become more righteous. That's directly linked to hating. And I'm not trying to make hating a bad thing. I'm just simply saying that when we find ourselves hating something or
Yeah,
someone, there's a part of us that deeply wants to be righteous. We're wanting a black and white because it's safe. I want to say this with deep compassion for myself and all of us. We have these difference can feel threatening. It can feel unsafe. So there are parts of us that especially the ego, it prefers this is what I do, this is what I don't do, right? This is what is good, this
yeah,
is what is bad type of energy. And if we think about Cancer season and also with this squaring the energy in Aries that we have right now, both of those signs have a lot to do with fear, both of
yeah.
them. And so I'm reading this great book about anxiety. Maybe some of you have read it. It's called First We Make the Beast Beautiful by Sarah Wilson.
Ooh,
It's a wonderful, it's an amazing book. But she talks about a couple of things. She talks about that, first of all, that anxiety is on the rise, and there's quotes about, I mean, there's actually like figures, facts and figures or whatever, about how much that percentage has risen, meaning a lot of us are having more of it. But she talks about the need to choose things that bring more comfort versus triggering more threat. And I feel like Cancer season is an invitation to figure out what
what?
comforts me. And what's interesting, those of us who tend to be anxious, and I'm one of them, we tend to treat anxiousness with more anxiety producing things, right? We work harder, we run faster, we have more caffeine. We literally try to amp ourselves up to get out of the amped state we're in,
Yeah,
and that builds on each other. So I think with Cancer, there's this beautiful part of self care. What would it mean to do that? But I'm just going to say this from my own personal experience and my experiences, as a practitioner, that oftentimes that feels scary. The slowing down, the comfort, the taking care of ourselves, it can initially feel like the threat. So
hmm,
there's this interesting, I think, back and forth that we're working on here. She also says in this book, it's beautiful. Those of us who meditate, will get this. She says that there's a part of us sitting on a bench just waiting for the other part of us to go meet it on the bench, right?
yeah,
And I think this season with Cancer, it's a cardinal sign, meaning it wants to take action, but it's yin. There's something about I want to go inside and find myself. So I was
yeah,
meditating just this morning, and before I started, I sort of imagined, I say to myself, oh, I'm going to go meet myself on that bench right now. Maybe it's
yeah,
only 8 minutes, whatever it is I'm going to do. But I think that's part of the invitation because when we can do that with ourselves,
totally.
that's the only way I think we have a chance of doing that more collectively. I
Yeah,
just don't see how we can be compassionate and hold space and be able to meet people where they're at and to be able to really extend our definitions of family, allowing ourselves to have unity and still have differences. If we're not able to do that in ourselves, it's very, very difficult.
yeah. I love this idea of reflecting inward and understanding who we are, who I am.
Yeah.
Um, it reminds me of the discourse that I went to last week or the week before with the Swami from India. And one of the things that he was talking about, and I don't remember if it what he was talking about Ramakrishna or who he was talking about in India. He was using an example of a lesson. And one of the things that the lesson was trying to teach was to be able to ask the question, who am I? And ask the question, who is the person or what is the thing that is saying, who am I to who am
Yeah.
I? And be able to hold that space for a little bit to see how far you can go,
Yeah.
to see how deep you can go. Because there's something to this, I think, where we start to understand this is where I always say, like, there's this terminology in philosophy called enlightened self-interest, which is when we're able to do what is most important for ourselves, we're actually able to make the largest contribution for others. And there's something about this that in order for you to feel safe, you have to be able to be safe and feel safe internally. And there's something about, and this is not a question of, or this isn't about religion or spirituality or whatever you may believe, but there's something to this that is like a call to action
Yeah.
to finding that inside of yourself so that when you feel comfortable and safe, it gives you that permission to then do those things that once caused you anxiety. And one exercise that I know that I talked to someone about was when you're feeling anxious or nervous, or if you're about to go take action on something and you know that your body is having a visceral reaction to it, she said those are the moments you should have a sit down. And she
Mm,
said, sit down with yourself and figure out where in your body this is unfolding. Have a conversation with yourself because what's just happening is that you're triggering something in the past that is feeling
yeah.
uncomfortable, that is feeling anxious. And anxiousness is tied not only to the future of the event, but it's actually triggered to the past. So there's this connection that we're associating that if I do this, I'm afraid of this because of something that happened when I was younger or a
Yeah.
couple of years ago. And when we can sit down with ourselves and be like, okay, what's going on, Ricky? Where is this coming from? Why are you
Yeah.
feeling so nervous about this? This is just you going out by yourself today. You're just going to the gym alone or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That could be so triggering for someone where they get that social anxiety and they don't want to go. I just want to stay home. I find that with cancer. Like cancer
Yeah.
can feel comfortable in the confines of their own home
Oh, 1,000,000%. Yes.
and they just might like watching Netflix or reading their book.
Yeah,
And
it's
like
great.
that may be their comfort zone. But to get out of that, they need to feel comfortable and safe in their own body. So
Yeah.
doing an exercise like this to understand why is it that I'm feeling uncomfortable and then having that healthy self-talk to say it's really you're going to be fine. We're just
Yeah.
going to the gym today. That's all it's going to be. You've done this a million times before in the past. Whatever's going on inside of you, everything is going to be okay. Adult Ricky's got you and
Yeah.
everything is going to be good. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like
And
Daddy
there's
Ricky's here now. I mean, that really is what
yes.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
And ironically within cancer we're dealing with those gender roles
Yeah.
and there's something to this that we
Yeah.
need to find the right parental voice to take over.
Yeah.
What parent do you need today? Do you need the father? Do you need the mother?
Yeah.
And understanding what part of you is what is needed right now could help you in those moments where you're feeling uncomfortable or you're feeling uncertain. One of my favorite books is called Comfortable with Uncertainty by Pema Chodron. And it's
Hmm.
it's it's like 108 lessons for people that are living life and are it's something like 108 lessons to live your life fearlessly, courageously or something like that. But she gives you contemplations for uncertainty to help get you in those moments because you really grow in uncertainty. That's we want to embrace the uncertainty because that's where a lot of growth can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think you've said this before, but being more comfortable, being uncomfortable is a
Mm,
ticket to pretty much everything I have
yeah,
discovered.
yeah,
And cancer also is well, it's linked with the stomach and digestion.
yeah,
And so when you're talking about the comfortable staying home and not going out, which is interesting because I have a part of me that likes to go out, but I experience what you just described a lot. Sometimes the minute if I know I have to leave the house, I get a stomach ache immediately. It's almost like my body knows, oh my
yeah.
gosh, I won't have control over my surroundings. But I want to say that there's oftentimes a direct reflection between digestion in the body, and I don't just it could be physically, right? You may actually have
100%.
tummy issues if you're a cancer person, but it can also be in can you digest emotions? Can you digest mental information? Can you digest things in life? Because if we have a hard time digesting life around us, which oftentimes cancer can, then we have a lot of issues around indigestion, right?
Yeah,
And so I just feel like this being able to be saying, okay, to your point, let me settle down with myself. I'm feeling anxious, whatever it is. My stomach hurts. I'm afraid of this. There is something about being with what's already happening that is so powerful because as most of you know, it's happening anyway.
yeah,
But if I suppress it or avoid it, that takes so much of my vital life force. It is so much more empowering to be with what I'm already doing.
yeah,
Oh, I mean, I'm anxious, right? That's what's actually going on right now, if that's the case. And so
totally.
the cancer compassion is that we have room for all of the feelings. We have room for all the things going on. They're human, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
make us weird or make us weak. It makes us what we are, human, which to
totally.
me is one of the biggest Cancer blessings when someone is healthy and able to be comfortable with themselves. That is there is sort of a sense of it is okay no matter wherever you are. And that is a
Totally.
beautiful thing. If you can be okay wherever you are internally, I mean, I don't know if I could think of anything else that would be more, what do I want to say, even supportive of everything in life itself.
Yeah. And that's just building a beautiful self relationship with you, your body, and
Yeah.
trusting yourself. And that that is a goal, I think, is one of the
Yeah.
highest frequencies of Cancer. Um, to achieve to experience that. And I just think about that concept of karma that I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes if part of why these things are showing up are for us to engage with them. And it comes back to
Yes.
that choice. Do I make this choice to create good karma for myself? And what good karma might represent is I'm going to tackle these voices, these anxieties, those things that are going on, because that has been a lesson that has been following me my whole life. And now it's my
I'm gonna
time to,
meet them finally. Finally,
yes,
I'm going
exactly.
to invite them in versus I have always shut the door on
Exactly.
them, which makes
Exactly.
me feel like Rumi's poem, The Guest House, right? This is a
Exactly.
perfect, I won't read it, but I literally have it handwritten on my wall to remind me, to welcome everything. He says at the end, be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So
Yeah.
what are we maybe ready to open the house door to,
Yeah.
metaphorically? Or maybe
Exactly.
literally, I don't know. But yeah.
Both. You might. It could be someone brand new.
Yeah.
So as you were just saying that, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I love it.
Um, so I'm trying to think if we kind of covered the 20th to the 24th with all of the that, because I feel like that covers a lot of that
Did you want to say anything
energy.
about Pluto? Because I know you came into our time together today feeling like that Pluto quincunx is important. I didn't want to skip over it if you feel like we should.
What I will just say is that in Cancer season, there's a lot of any time a planet in Cancer squares anything in Aries, which is pretty much going to be the sun, Mercury, Jupiter, the moon is going to do this. They're all going to have an inconjunct with Pluto and Aquarius. And I find like an inconjunct is not it's a to me it's a major aspect, but I don't think it's often talked about when we're doing transits. Like it's not common in that sense. I don't hear a lot of people that talk about it.
Yeah.
And so what's unique is we have Cancer in Aquarius in this relationship, which is in itself, I look at a quincunx sometimes is very annoying and very frustrating.
Yes.
And I was looking back at one of Jeffrey Wolf Green's book, and he referred to it as almost like there could be unresolved karma when you see an inconjunct that's happening, and there's a desire or a need for an adjustment.
Yeah.
There's something that wants to change. And so when we think about Cancer, which we've just talked a lot about the Cancer archetype, and when we bring in Aquarius energy, which is seeking some sense of freedom from all of this conditioning,
Yeah.
freedom from all of the past. Like, I don't want to do it. I want to detach from it. I want to be my own thing. Like, leave me alone. And Cancer wants to hold on to it.
Yeah.
And so there's this karmic tension that is unfolding. I could see every time that a planet is going to meet up with Pluto, there's this tension or a crisis point that can show up for us between the pulse of Pluto, which is pushing towards breaking free, pushing towards deconditioning, pushing towards detaching and aligning ourselves with that the purest form of our own individuality, our own individual self, versus holding on to something from the past or attachment or um you know giving our emotional security in an unhealthy way or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to notice that we may feel this sort of dance between Cancer and Aquarius. And so I think what Pluto wants for us in Cancer season as we go through these transits, I feel like we're trying to heal potential abandonment wounds,
Mm.
isolation or alienation wounds, the need to like take care of other people, to be the person that is always like providing for everyone else and not ourselves. Um, One word that I wrote down was purification. And I
Mm,
wrote down purification because we have Mars and Virgo as well. And Mars and Pluto have a relationship with each other.
yeah.
So I just feel like there's something about, and when I say purification, this isn't to perfection, purification from the perspective of what is unhealthy, what needs to be
Cleaned
looked
up
at.
is the word
Yeah,
I use for Pluto. Yeah.
yes. What needs to be
Yeah.
cleaned? I like that.
Yeah.
What needs to be cleaned up when it comes to all of this cancer stuff?
Mhm.
And Pluto may expose it for us to see it. And having Jupiter in this is already a flashlight of everything. Um, it feels like this could be kind of like a gift in the annoyance. Like in the frustration, there's the gift that Pluto could bring. It's kind of like it may be uncomfortable to deal with, but like if you do what Pluto asks you, you're going to become a completely brand new person
Mhm.
and you'll love it. But doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Yeah. Or that
So
you'll choose to do it. Yeah.
the question I wrote was how could you honor your emotions and your past while stepping into your own unique self and focusing on your underlined your future, like what you want for yourself, not what other people are wanting for yourself, not what your family wants for yourself, not any of that. What do I want for myself? Um, this reminds me of when I was younger. One of the things will never forget it. I was like, I want to move to Florida. I grew up and I had very close family all around me. I moved 1,400 miles away from everyone alone. I was like, peace out, I'm gone. And I was like, I need to do this. And that's very much like the cancer part of it. I had that in the family. But then there's the Aquarius part of me that was like, oh, I gotta do something. And there was this instinct, and it came out of nowhere. It was just my desire to break free. Um, and it wasn't out of a negative
Yeah.
perspective and being anything. It was just, I need to do this for myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like I became who I was meant to be because of it.
Yeah.
Did it mean it was easy? No.
Mm.
There was arguments and fights and everything under the sun, but was it worth it? I had the best relationship that I've had with family members because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's always helpful, at least for me, to remember that when those moments present themselves where you realize you want to do something new or do something different, it doesn't have to make what we've been doing wrong or a problem, right? It's just almost like, oh, there's a different option available to me. I think I might want to entertain doing something different. Because as you were talking, what I kept coming into my mind was the cancer keeps saying, oh, but it's so personal and I have to kind of keep it safe and I have to do what I've been doing and I have to honor my roots. And I could just hear that Pluto and Aquarius saying, and it's not personal and you might not have
Yeah.
to and it might
Yeah.
look different, like literally, like that's how it like came into my head.
Yes.
So there's this also this balance between cancer really does take things personally, like
Oh, 100%.
I mean, we speaking as one, like something happens, someone does something, it almost always feels like somehow that's about me in some way, or it's
My fault.
reflecting something about, yeah, about me, or and I just think that that Pluto and Aquarius is a reminder again and again, open, like
Yeah.
it's like open the view, right?
Hmm.
Shift the aperture. There's a lot more to be seen here. And when you
Yeah.
see what more is available, sometimes you never even knew you wanted that thing over there like Florida, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what you just triggered a thought to me as I just said it?
Mm.
And it might not only manifest in this way, it can manifest in the polar opposite. Let's say
Mm.
you are already so objective and detached emotionally.
Yes.
This is a call to the emotional body. This could be, I
Yeah, yeah.
need to come into my emotions. I need to do that. Like it could be the flip-flopped energy.
Yes.
As we're saying it, like there's this other part to it because while there's probably a majority of the people here that need to look at the Pluto and Aquarius energy, that may not fit with everyone. There may be some people that are so disconnected from their emotions because they
So
become so,
dissociated, right? Completely.
yes.
Yes.
And
Good.
there's a call to the emotional body now, a need to come back, to be like, you know what? Maybe I need to go back home. Maybe I need to,
Ooh.
um, I need to do this for my family, or I need to do that. I don't know. That's just another feeling that could show up here.
Yes, it's so interesting because now we've talked about at this point, we've talked about a lot of Aries, we talked a lot about a Cancer, and talked about then Aquarius on top of it. So
Aquarius.
there's such these three, and there's all these sort of different perspectives of the Aries, like I'm just going to do what I want and give me the freedom and I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I don't even need to consider anybody else. I'm saying like that can be part of that archetype. To the Cancer, well, I better to stay home, might not be safe. What if my family needs me? And or keep repeating
Hmm.
old patterns. To Aquarius, well, there's actually a whole bigger picture and then
Yeah.
considering everybody involved. So I think anywhere we're at in the merry-go-round, as you say,
Yes.
it's about recognizing where you are in the merry-go-round
A
and then
hundred percent.
figuring out where you might want to get off or realize that that merry-go-round is a very tiny version of something when you could be on a much larger
100%.
ride that actually moves somewhere versus circular. Not that circular is wrong, right? So,
Yeah. No. And that's what I was gonna say. You might need to get on the circular one. You
yeah,
might
you
need to
might
get
need
on this ride.
you get on the merry-go-round, which we never say. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because I just realized
Yeah.
it could be the opposite for some people where,
Yeah.
I mean, I think about the people that are emotionally disconnected or individuals that have very challenging narcissistic personalities.
Hmm.
They are going to feel this energy
Yeah.
in the opposite way where it may be
Yeah.
they need to get involved. That like huge.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so that was yeah, that's unique.
Well, you just made a live example of the energy just in the way you flipped the way we were talking about this. So I don't know if anybody noticed, but Ricky literally just did the the quincunx with Pluto. I'm like, you literally just did it. So there
Yeah.
couldn't be a better example than
So
we.
it's I think it's powerful because all season long we have this dance with these three signs.
Yeah,
Um and it's not going to go away. I mean, we have
yeah,
so much cardinal energy.
yeah.
So then we have the new moon on the 25th.
Yes.
I have 4 degrees and 8 minutes, but I don't have the exact
I have
time
the
of.
time. I have
Okay,
it. It's 3:32 a.m. Pacific time.
perfect.
Yeah.
And this specific new moon I have again square Saturn, square Neptune, square
Yes, we can't get away
Jupiter,
from that. Yep.
in conjunct Pluto again, and then sextiling Mars.
Which is an extra big deal because Mars is ruler of the Saturn and Neptune that are squaring it. So I love
Yeah,
how you brought Mars in earlier because I feel like Mars is still pushing for something, right? There's a
yeah. Both
and
Mars and Pluto are involved in this, which I think is unique. They're both involved, and these are two power placements here. So it's unique that you get both of them involved in the same lunation.
but it's
Um,
interesting that Mars is the only one that has, I mean, again, hold these challenging
makes
harmoniously loosely because it doesn't mean
yeah,
good, bad. But the that's the one aspect in this that is harmonious is the one with Mars. And that makes
yeah.
me pause for a second. Wait a minute.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why I lean in and I say, what? So I just to make Mars simple is I like to say that this is our opportunity to become like this is our the choices, our actions, what we are consciously doing on a day-to-day basis, right? Mars here is in Virgo. And for me, Virgo is about efficiency and trying to do our best to get better, to do better, to be better.
Yeah.
Just at that level, I almost feel like how can I be better and do better every single day in my life? Like how can I be the best version of myself today? What would that mean and what would that look like? I think there could be outside stressors indicated by the squares, indicated by the
Mhm.
inconjunct,
Mhm.
but there's something to this between Virgo and Cancer.
Internal help, I feel is what it is.
Yeah, and it's there. It already exists. It exists within you. And it's almost like within Virgo and Cancer, listen to your body.
Yeah.
Virgo's a very body sign for me. I always say, listen, you'll meet Virgos and they are so sensitive in their bodies. And
Yeah.
if they listen to their bodies, they will thrive.
Mhm.
And Mars and Virgo wants us to listen to our body and then take action on that. Like, what is like, how can I just take that step forward? Those could be baby steps for you today. It might be just taking one step forward. Um, you may be feeling very ungrounded or not feeling a little insecure with you finally doing something on your own.
Yes.
Um, but you have the blessings of Jupiter. You have Mars involved in this, which is telling you just take one step forward.
Yeah.
Don't focus on the full pie. Just focus on the first cut that you need to take. I think it was. I think this is Jeffrey. Was he? I think he was the one that talked about the centipede example with
Yep, he
Virgo,
did. He did.
which is just like put like a centipede doesn't think about which leg it's going to move. It just moves. But if it was to think about its 47th leg, right? It's like, hold up,
Can't walk
everything's
at
gonna
all.
stop.
Yeah.
No. And so I think to myself, there's another person that used the example of the jellyfish that I know. And with jellyfish, they're fascinating creatures if you watch them because the way that they move, they do like this little scrunch pattern and then they just flow. And there's something within Virgo that's like, do your little scrunches and then just allow yourself to go with the flow because you created the momentum. There's something to this.
Yeah. You know, another thing about Virgo is that it's about self-accuracy. And so
Yeah.
there's something here about whittling down to, the essence of ourselves, which speaks kind of to how we opened up the whole thing around coming back to the self. So I think that's another beautiful way to think about Virgo. I also think that Virgo, it has a lot to do with humbling or humility.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes what can happen is that and the way I've come to understand arrogance is making myself either more than or less than. I say this is important because
Yeah.
oftentimes we just see it as being inflated. But in Virgo, we need to pay attention to where do I deflate myself and where do I overinflate myself because what we're trying to come into is a sweet spot of no, this is actually me full size,
Yeah.
not overdone or underdone.
Yeah.
And I think that's another beautiful invitation here, which to your point, though, feeling the body, slowing down, one slice of pie, not worrying about the, one leg, because truly, like that's like when I start watching the stairs too much when I'm climbing them, and then I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
fall down, right? Because I can't, yeah,
Right.
you can't do it that way.
And this specific gene key is gene key 52, which is the
Ooh,
shadow of stress.
stress.
Stress. And it's the gift is of restraint, which has so much with holding back, with being still, with not this is not the time for us to, become a jack of all trades, master of none.
Oh,
This is that is going to create unnecessary stress for you in your life. You don't need to do that. And that's what's so cool about Virgo being towards that self correction.
yeah,
Because what's happening here is that if we are trying to do so much, this is going to be sort of we're going to create stress for ourselves. And what the stress of this is doing, or the crisis that's going to unfold, is focus on one thing. Just do one
yeah,
thing at a time. And when you do that one thing, do it to excellence. Not
yeah,
perfection, but to excellence. And
yeah,
just do it. And the thing about Virgo is when they do this, they create amazing things for themselves. It
yeah.
doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be to do your best in that moment. And I feel like that's one of the gifts here, but it requires for us to hold ourselves back a little bit. I remember when I started studying this gene key, it was so difficult for me because there's this natural impulse in us as human beings to go above and beyond and keep doing.
Yeah.
But do you have to do that? Do you have to go above and beyond every single time? Can you hold your energy back just a little bit to slow yourself down? Because when we do that, it's this pursuit to something that will never happen. It'll never be what we think we want it to be.
And Mars and Virgo, the trap can be pushing harder, right? Like Mars
Yeah,
actually, it's like go, 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 go for excellence, work harder. I think I
it's
was
like
preparing
burnout.
something yesterday on Bob Marley, and this is a paraphrase, but it was like a simple quote that he had made that basically said something to the effect of, you win the race when you stop running. And so there is something about this energy
A
where,
turtle.
yeah, but because Mars wants to win, right? But Virgo energy, like it's mutable energy. So we could just go all crazy. But then to your point, we would never get
Yeah,
there. In fact, I also think on the same with this new moon with the square to Saturn and Neptune, we could be really fussing around with coming to terms with false illusions, maybe things that, we
yep,
kind of seen things in, I don't know, like a different picture than what things actually are. There's, I think, moments of coming to reality here. And to see that, we can't be moving too fast. Like we like missed the whole movie or whatever. Like we
totally.
need to see it.
I love that.
The Chandra symbol for this one, and remember the new moon is for everybody watching 4 degrees Cancer, 8 minutes, so I'm rounding up to 5 degrees. And the Chandra symbol is a trap door under a rug. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the first line is getting lost and getting found. I think that really aligns nicely with the energy we've been talking about here.
Yeah.
And,
There's a
and
Disney song that I love that is called it's from Frozen 2, by the way. It's called All Is Lost, I believe is the name of the song. And the lyric is, "When all is lost, everything can be found." It's from Frozen
Oh,
2. Yeah, that's so
yeah.
that's actually goes in alignment with that.
And I just realized this actually has the word humbled in it and the word sobered. And sobered, take it metaphorically, could be a very Saturn word. So
Yeah,
this says that, so getting lost and getting found, shadowed by self all the way. Interesting. So self is definitely a big piece of this.
yeah,
Sent upon a cycle of radical externalization and almost being able to pull it off. Yet you are shadowed, haunted, bugged, and sabotaged by the strangest things. Fate speaks loud and clear and says, "You are doing all this for a purpose, and your expression is pushing so far outward for good reason. But you must remember, get sobered and humbled. Be tripped up by what you don't see and won't let yourself feel," which is actually saying, get tripped up and
yeah,
stop with those
yeah,
things. Yeah,
100%.
it's a beautiful. So I think this idea of a trapdoor under a rug, how are you going to find a trapdoor under a rug if you're racing out of the room?
Yeah,
You're not going to get it. Yeah,
no,
you will miss it altogether.
and it's a missed opportunity that
Yeah.
um I think it's a important new moon for us,
Hmm.
and then this is next week. I think it's next Wednesday. I think it's 1 week from today, right?
Yep,
Um,
25th Wednesday.
so it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. One of the things that I love that you brought up was the concept of the distortions and whatnot, and the truths. And I wrote in my notes emotional truths question mark.
Oh, that's so good.
Um, like like is there a reveal of emotional truths, especially with Pluto involved here? There can be some level of something being revealed, some sort of emotional truth surfacing for us,
Yeah.
um, if we're ready for it.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
so
such a cancer thing too, right? That the cancer is so attached to memories, but they're emotional memories. So those little radical moments or transformative moments with Pluto that all of a sudden reveal somehow what that emotional memory was in a different context, or we understand it in a different way, or it comes up for the first time. And those
yeah,
can change everything. I'm going through a personal thing right now where I am literally now looking back at the last almost 51 years or 50 years with a whole different lens, like an entirely different lens.
yeah. And
So,
I think you know what this reminds me of. There's a book on this. I'll have to. I could put it in the comments after because I don't have it
okay.
around me. But there was a guy. I read his book. He was talking about the science behind memory and
Mm,
how our emotions will actually create an attachment to the memory, and the memory that we think we have is actually distorted and it's not the truth anymore. And so it's how our memory has evolved from a memory, say 10 years ago, is not actually how something had happened.
yes.
And so I don't it's a lime green book. That's all I remember, but I
Okay.
don't remember the name of it. But again, I'll post it in the comments. It's a fascinating read that kind of talks about this whole
Yeah.
concept of emotional memory and how do we remember things and is it really true?
Yes, and we can say we could honor that it's true in my feeling experience of it, but that's very different. Like we could honor I totally believe you feel that way, but that's very different from what actually happened. And Cancer
Yes.
can be such an emotional hoarder. I know we say Taurus is the like into hoarding stuff, but Cancer when it comes to emotional hoarding,
Emotions.
yeah, and what's Neptune about? I mean, not Net well, Neptune would help dissolve that, but
Yes.
Pluto, literally, when
It's
it comes
coming
to
with you.
hoarding, Pluto will say you got to eliminate that shit, right? There's
Yeah.
a certain level. So, what is it that I've been emotionally hoarding that's plugging up my whole system? That now that Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, all this energy is like, dude, you need a purge
Yeah.
button somewhere. Yes.
And it's funny because I feel like this is whenever I we always say this to do your Pluto work. When Pluto shows up,
Yeah.
do what Pluto's asking of you because we store so much of our of those emotional memories, some of which we don't even remember anymore from
Yeah.
like from this life, our past lives and whatnot. Whatever we see, whatever we don't want to take care of, I always look at it like that's coming with you in your next life. It's gonna get stored and it's coming with you. Um, so it's up to you. It's like what are you gonna put on, what are you gonna put in the closet and say, I'll deal with that next life. But Pluto doesn't necessarily want us to, but it will also store that for you to be like, this is not going away, whether you like
Yeah.
it or not. We gotta deal with this at one point or another.
But
It's just
then
whenever.
monsters build in the closet. At least that's my
Yes.
experience. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
because they need
Um,
out. They're like they're suffocating in there, right? So,
yes,
there's something about needing to get out of it.
totally. After the new moon, um, was there another there's a few important transits that are coming up, but I wanted to see where you would want to jump next to.
Well,
Um,
I think it's worth mentioning that the day after the new moon, that Mercury moves to Leo, and I bring this up because it's going to be in Leo for a long time because it's then going to turn retrograde in
yep,
in July. So we've got Mercury in Leo from June 26th all the way till September 2nd. So Mercury usually is moving pretty quickly through a sign, like what maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So
yeah,
this is a big chunk of time. And with Mercury being in Leo, that means it's ruled by the sun in Cancer right at this time. And so I just thought there was something interesting about Mercury making that move and then being ruled
yeah.
by the sun in Cancer. The note that I wrote down here is where is the loyalty? That's what came to me when I was looking at it. What are we
Ooh,
loyal to? What are we loyal to, or where is the loyalty? Because Leo likes to be loyal.
yeah,
Sometimes when the steward of that energy is in Cancer, sometimes that loyalty is not necessarily where we want it to be anymore. And by the way, to speak to your thing about taking all those past life memories with us, I think that's why people say that the moon that rules Cancer, that we go back to the moon between lives, and it's literally the repository of all that stuff.
yeah,
So
totally.
we've got Mercury the messenger, Mercury the storyteller, Mercury the one who moves around, all of a sudden in that territory. So,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me imagine, like, should it save all those big books of history,
Yeah,
or should some of them, go in the burn bin? I don't know, but that's kind of
right.
how it feels.
I know. And the other thing I was just having this conversation with someone the other day with which with what you just said. And what came to me is I looked at their life and I said, I feel like you're so loyal to everyone in your life but yourself.
Ooh,
And why is it so easy for you to be loyal to everyone else but not stick to your own promises?
yeah.
And so I would challenge us in this journey of Mercury and Leo to measure our loyalty not only to other people but to your own story that you're telling and your own personal truth that you're living. Because at the core of Leo, Leo would love some attention.
Yep.
But if you're not loyal to yourself or giving yourself the space to show up or taking up space in your own life, in your
Mhm.
own world, you'll never get it.
Yep.
And so there's something to this that I would challenge, going and piggybacking off of that. Like, how loyal are you to your own self? Like, how loyal are you to your body? Do you take care of yourself? Do you eat healthy? Do you go to the gym every day? Do you do the spiritual work that you should be doing? Do you do the creative work that you could be doing? Like, how loyal are you to this life experience for yourself?
Which is beautiful, linking back to Cancer and self-care. It's even
Yeah,
like, when you're sick, do you rest? Do you
exactly.
when you have to go to the bathroom, do you go, or do you sit and keep working until, oh my God, I can hardly wait? I mean, these are little things, but oftentimes these are ways that we are not loyal
Yeah. It becomes your
to,
identity.
yeah,
And then it shows up everywhere. It's going to show up in your relationships, your friendships, your family, your work. Um,
yeah,
and that becomes a way of being. And so, like I said, challenge is measuring how loyal you are to yourself.
yeah, yeah. That's good. I like it. And even more so when Mercury turns retrograde, I feel like then there's even
Yeah,
more. So that will just
an
continue
opportunity.
on. Yeah, for a
Yeah.
while.
Um,
I have a
I
note, Ricky, that Venus moves to that now. That's it for June for me. So I don't know if you had
yeah.
more in June, but for me that leads me to July.
Mercury opposes Pluto at the end of the month on the
Yeah.
29th. Um, but I feel comfortable with what we shared because I feel like we kind of embodied a lot of
Yeah.
these transits with what we've talked about.
Yeah.
We kind of covered the energy of the month without being specific in the transit.
Yeah.
I
That's
check in
great.
on it.
That's kind of more my living style with
Yes,
astrology anyway, to be very
yes,
honest.
rather than technical.
Yeah.
On the 4th, July 4th, Venus enters Gemini, which I'm so excited about.
Yep.
Um, and Neptune stations retrograde.
Yep.
And I love this because I always say when Venus enters Gemini, for me, it feels like permission to be flirty, to have fun. And so to me, it's like my permission for the summer.
Yeah.
to just enjoy and be lighthearted in a time that could have felt very heavy.
Yeah.
This could be the lightness that is needed. Or if it's not necessarily about being outwardly flirty, it could be inwardly in the context of I want to learn, I want to do something new, like I
Yeah.
want to entertain my intellect and my mind. So I think July starts off nice, and Venus and Taurus, or Venus and Uranus have that conjunction at the end of Taurus, which I kind
Hmm.
of like. This,
Hmm.
in my experience with Venus and Taurus, when they have their Venus and Uranus and Taurus, when they've had these conjunctions, um, I've had really good things happen for me personally. Um, whether it's like a beautiful, sensual experience, financial opportunities,
Yeah.
like just really cool experiences that have happened for me that could show up. Um, and
Synchronicity is one for me with that energy. Could
yeah,
be very, especially in relationships, anything, not just people, anything
yeah,
you're in a relationship with. There's something about that Uranus Venus together.
it's cool.
Yeah. It's like you almost can see like, whoa, I never noticed like that pattern or that connection or that thing.
Yeah,
And so it can, blow your mind a little bit or open your heart a little bit. Uh,
totally.
in a curious way, though. I feel like the levity I do think I'm appreciating too, because there's a lot of stuff you and I both had expressed this before we got on here to share here, that we both had this feeling as we were preparing that once we got into July, that there was this feeling of spaciousness, like there was a shift of energy. And I want
Yeah,
to honor that I know I didn't have perfect words or explanation for it, but even looking through my planner, it's like some of the days even felt empty, if that makes sense. Like it
yeah,
almost just felt like, oh, there's more breathing room here, or there's a different energy here. Whereas June, that especially the end of June, really felt like a bit of a pressure cooker to me.
yeah, exactly. And I think the end of Cancer season, the way that this comes to a close is different. Um, And then and one of the things I was looking at too is I feel like you and I I think we talked about this, doing a whole separate video just on Uranus and Gemini,
Yes.
because that's such a loaded subject in itself.
Yes. That's July
Um
7th, everybody. July
yeah.
7th, Uranus moves to Gemini. Yep.
And so we'll do a separate conversation about that for time, because I feel like it
Awesome.
deserves its own hour.
Yes, I
Um
totally agree.
and then one thing that I did want to get into before we finish up today was that full moon.
Oh, yes.
Um on the 10th, which is at 18 degrees in 50, I think 50 or 50. I wrote 50 or 56. I can't read my own handwriting.
550. It's 50.
50,
50
50 minutes.
Capricorn.
Um, and I have it in Gene Key 54 and Gene Key 53, which is the shadow of immaturity and the shadow of greed.
Okay, so
Um,
the Chandra symbol is actually difficult here too. So this is interesting where we're definitely hitting up some limitations around this
yeah.
energy. Okay, tell me more.
So it's ironic because the gift of the actual moon is, sorry, the gift of Gene Key 54 is expansion.
Mm,
What happens is that we have to measure how ready are we for like authentic growth in our life, like
mm,
and it's ironic because at a shadow frequency of Cancer could be emotional immaturity for sure. And so one of the highest expressions I always get into is the emotional maturation that needs to happen within Cancer, which requires being able to sit with and navigate and engage with what I went through in my life, and be
yeah.
able to not allow that to become sort of like something that I ignore or I don't deal with. And I feel like it's funny because the word greed I was sitting with Capricorn, and I think it's such a powerful word because greed can connect to that hunger, that sort of like
Yeah.
lust energy where you're like you're wanting something, or I just want more, I want more, I want more. And I feel like when I saw these specific gene keys, I wanted to tie them into Cancer energy and emotions. And so I could see this manifesting as someone maybe that is like a serial dater or a serial
Mm,
relationship person, and they just keep doing and doing and doing, and they don't know how to stop this pattern of what they're doing. Or, and it might not, however it shows up, it could be out of, I just don't want to be alone. I just don't want to do these things or whatever. And I feel like within Cancer and Capricorn coming together, this does feel like a mark of maturity. Like I feel like
yeah.
it's challenging our core sense of how secure and stable do you feel in this world? Like there's something about this. So I'm interested to hear what the Chandra symbol is,
Yeah. Yeah, I was
and
like, oh, when
how
I
it
read it.
connects to the gene keys.
Yeah, and I just want to say with the emotional immaturity, oftentimes emotional immaturity is hidden behind caretaking and overextending in
Yeah.
emotionally helping. I put quotes around that others. I'm just going to say, and I think that the interplay between Cancer and Capricorn is to recognize where we need some boundaries, where there's,
Yeah.
where there should be some limits around that energy. And it's interesting, the greed, Cancer always feels like it needs to feed. So there's an interesting
Yeah.
combination here with feed and greed, and how do those, things come
Come
together?
together.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Chandra symbol. So I'm going to go up to I'm rounding to 19 degrees Capricorn, and it is a half-eaten piece of bread. And I'll read a little bit here. Utilitarian considerations. Observing the self through objectified eyes, conditioning and programming. Talking self and others into following the program. Coming back to the think about, like coming
Yeah.
back to that sort of cult think or tribal think, it's
100%.
interesting here. Astute wheeler dealer. You're not there in it, picturing it as though it were something brutally obvious and commonplace. Decadence, that goes with
Yeah.
greed, right?
Greed.
Barbarian tendencies. Sympathies with the consciousness of problems and issues, difficulties and struggles, all pervasive. Never content. We could say never fed, right?
Yeah.
Never content. Always aware of what is not happening, right? What I'm not getting versus we might say the actual
Yeah.
gratitude for what I do have. And then this is the last sentence. The bitter perspective and relentless repetition of the litany of gloom and doom.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was like, wow,
Talk
that,
about a Capricorn moon.
yes, and ruled by Saturn, which is
Exactly.
conjunct Neptune, which is now retrograde. So there's
Yeah.
really some, I mean, to me, there's really something around we need to embrace more wholeness. If we are too rigid and narrow and confined in what we strive for or what we think we need or the whole reality structure we have, we're going to be
Yeah.
left with this a half-eaten piece of bread, which just sounds kind of sad. It's like
Yeah.
crumbs, you know what I mean?
Totally. And I feel like, is that what you're left if you're a greedy person?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if you're greedy because you want more, 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 and what you're left with is a half-eaten piece of bread.
All you
And
have
it's
is
like
your money, right? Yeah, that's
you
not.
chased for all of this, and all you have is a half a piece of bread and it's already eaten. And it's like, what was it all for? Why did you do it?
Yes, that's very
What was the
depressing.
purpose? Yeah, sorry. I feel the
No,
I'm
it's
trying to like
good. Yeah.
really hit home here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for me too. I know.
And there's something about this, like, what is the mature approach here?
Mhm.
What does that look like? And Capricorn thrives in that sense of maturity.
Yes.
But there's something about this that the gene keys for me are talking about there being an essence of immaturity that is showing up. And this
Yeah.
specific full moon, I wrote is trining that Mars in Virgo and is in conjunct Mercury in Leo.
Yep.
Um, and so again, Mars is involved in this specific lunation.
Even more so because there's a T square with the moon, the sun, and Chiron in
Yeah,
Aries is ruled by Mars. So we even have, I would say, a double down on it. And Ricky, both the nodes are involved as well.
yeah.
So
And you totally.
it feels very, I'm going to use the word fate, not in any kind of scary way. It feels very fated that we reach a place where there really is a decision that needs to be made. And what decision we make, we may have to live with for a while. And I feel like
Yeah,
that sometimes
especially
is
with
a,
Saturn. Yeah,
yep,
in Capricorn.
yep. You
And
want to
again, the
keep,
gifts of this is expansion and aspiration. So
yeah.
I don't know. There's opportunity to really, really, really make some positive changes here for the long term with Saturn. Um, and as we come into this full moon, right, the day or 2 days after, Saturn goes into its retrograde cycle.
Yep.
And then right after, Mercury goes into its retrograde cycle. So it's
Yes.
almost like we're having this little bit of a it's not a rewind, it's more of like that pause. There's like a
Yes.
sacred pause for me.
Yep.
That's unfolding as we're closing down Cancer season. That's kind of like, hey, how'd you do? how are we doing? It's like, what's going on? It's I don't know. I see us like at a stop sign, and it's almost
Yes.
like, there's someone on the outside of your car, and they're like, "So, how'd you like the view? It's like a crab on the outside of the car, and the crab is like, "How'd you like it? Did you like cancer season?"
Yeah, and then you can really stop and really self-reflect. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm coming back to this like crust of bread, and I'm thinking, what it's very moving for me for whatever reason. Like
Yes.
I'm just really like getting it. It's almost like this like I'm so greedy, but what I really have is a crust of bread. What would it mean for me to have a full meal in my life, metaphorically? What would it mean?
Yeah.
What is a full meal for me?
Yeah. I
Such
agree
a such a
100%.
cancer, such a cancer
But
thing to talk
but I
about.
think your ability to have a full meal has a lot to do with your ability to feel safe within your own body and to feel safe and secure with yourself. Because if you can't feel safe and secure within your own self, right, you are unable to be able to appreciate, handle a full loaf of bread or a full dinner.
Ricky, I wouldn't even be able to digest it.
Yeah.
We're back to that again, right? So maybe then the safer thing is we could think about what a full meal would look like, but maybe for me, I'm just going to put a piece of cheese on the bread, and that's already a big step towards
Yeah.
something. So I could have more and actually be able to receive it because choosing too much, being too greedy, oftentimes ensures we get nothing.
Yeah.
So there's
Totally.
that beauty in the small thing, like, oh, I can have a little bit of a bigger bite and
Yeah.
actually have it, because sometimes we tend to go back and forth between the starving to the stuff myself so full, I can't handle it.
Totally.
Wow. And all
It
these,
reminds me of that old Buddhist story about being grateful. Like, if there was a cockroach in your bowl of strawberries, are you going to be grateful for the 100 strawberries, or are you going to notice the one cockroach?
well, that's a very good question. I probably noticed a cockroach.
And that's what we do.
That's
Humans love
honest.
the
I'm just
outcome.
saying, like,
No, but that's the exercise is that we're so prone to noticing the cockroaches instead of noticing all of the delicious red strawberries that are right in front of us. We're going to notice that one cockroach.
this gets back to talk about emotional things and feeling cared for, feeling loved, or feeling understood in relationships, right? So often we just pay attention to the thing we're not getting, that we don't receive the 10 things. So I might say, oh, well,
Exactly.
Ricky's not doing XYZ for me, and I don't pay attention at all to the 10 things that Ricky does do for me. And that's the way
Yeah.
Ricky does it, for example.
Yeah.
So this, I think, is another, that to me is another step of, use the word maturity. Maturity is really being able to
Totally.
see those things for what they are versus
Yeah.
being so stuck in, I need you to be this way for me, or I need it to look this way, or I need to have this much, this, whatever it is. Those are very limiting. And what we don't recognize is they're self-limiting.
Totally.
We think it's the opposite, but it's actually giving us less.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Was
Yay.
there anything else for you that you wanted to bring up on for the rest of Cancer season?
No, I think it's if anyone wants the dates, that July 17th or the 18th, depending on where you are, that's when Mercury turns retrograde.
Yeah.
And then it'll be retrograde until August 11th. It is going to be in Leo the whole time. So, sometimes it straddles signs. This time it's sticking in that space the whole time, which I think just takes us back to that question about, are you being loyal to yourself and where is your loyalty? I think that is a good thing
Totally.
just to hang in there with.
Yeah.
Where's your heart might be another question around it too.
Ooh, yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
your heart
Mind and
actually in
heart.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Mercury would be the mind and Leo's the heart. Well, what's going on
Hmm.
there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you speaking from the heart?
Yeah. You
I
live
love
from
it.
your
I'm
heart. Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. It's good. No,
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. Ricky, thank you as always. I love our time together.
Ditto.
Everybody, whatever space and time you're in, thank you for being here with us too.
Thank
And
you.
we'll definitely get ourselves together for Uranus and
Uranus.
Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes,
we'll have
100%.
it. Right, everybody.
Thank you.
Right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
We are the universe, and we